Hello, and how's it going? Welcome to the channel, and I'm here for an album review for you guys. This is once again a review for another album by Linkin Park. Now, the reason I've been doing a few Linkin Park videos and reviews as of recent is because I have been listening to them quite often recently, to be quite honest with you. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about this album because this album was actually my introduction to Linkin Park. This was the album that got me into the band. And the album I am talking about is Minutes to Midnight. And to me, this is a pretty underrated album. I know there's a lot of people that have this album close to the bottom of their Linkin Park rankings. For me, I disagree with that. I think before One More Light came out, a lot of people had this album at the bottom, which I think is absurd. I think that's ridiculous, to be honest, because this album is actually pretty solid. Sure, it's not as good as their first two albums, Hybrid Theory and Meteora, but it's still a very good album, for sure. Now, this album, it's kind of different. I mean, and obviously that could be why some people don't like this album as much. It is very different in comparison to the first couple of Linkin Park albums. It's definitely not as nu metal as those first two albums. They definitely took a more hard rock direction, kind of post-grunge in some songs, very similar to bands like Breaking Benjamin, Red, and 3 Days Grace, and bands of that variety. That's kind of what they were going for with this album. But yeah, like I said, it's pretty underrated, and it was my introduction. Now, some people might say that it's not a very good introduction. Believe me, I know. I mean, I wish I would have started out with one of their first two albums, but I still think this is a really good album. This is, once again, like with The Hunting Party, one of those albums that I do have to talk about every song because I am pretty familiar with this album. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into this album, Minutes to Midnight. The album starts off with Wake, which is just a short introduction to the album. Not really anything special, but it does lead right into Given Up. Now, whenever I do listen to Given Up, I usually just skip the introduction Wake and just go straight to Given Up, which some people might do that, some people might not do that, some people might prefer, listening to the introduction first, which it's fine, whatever. But Given Up is a great song, though, and it is one of my favorites on the album for sure. And maybe even one of Linkin Park's best songs. This is one of the heavier songs on the album. And yeah, the energy and those screams from Chester, definitely great stuff. I mean, the energy, it's really something. I really like the guitar work, the drum work, Chester's vocals. I pretty much got no complaints with this song. Great stuff. And then you got Leave Out All the Rest, which is, I want to say, more of a radio-friendly kind of song. Kind of easier to get into if you're not really into hard rock or heavy metal. But yeah, it is a good song, though. It might be another one of my favorites. I'm not sure. It doesn't have the strongest replay value, but it is a good song, though. I do dig this one. Plenty of emotion in that song. And then we got Bleed It Out, which is one of the few songs on this album that actually has rapping in it. Now, if you're familiar with Linkin Park's first two albums, you guys know that most of the songs, have rapping in them. With this album definitely has a lot less rapping to it. So if you're someone who isn't really a big fan of rap and you're just trying to get into Linkin Park, like you've tried to give them chances, but the thing that is holding you back is that rapping. This album might do something for you because there's only really a couple of tracks on here that have rapping. So yeah, and Bleed It Out is one of those songs that do have rapping, but I think it's decently done in this song. Yeah, pretty good song. It's got a really catchy chorus. It's just kind of short, straightforward, and it's a pretty good song. Then we got Shadow of the Day, which, I'll be honest, is one of my least favorites on the album. Probably is my least favorite, or at least one of my least favorites. I'm not sure, but it's a decent song, but it's just kind of boring if you ask me. Then we got What I've Done, which is a really good song. Another one of the heavier tracks. The drum work is really outstanding in this song. Pretty energetic and fun to listen to. Lyrically, it's about forgiveness and repentance and, regretting your mistakes, that kind of thing. That's something that, everyone can relate to, really. But yeah, it's a really great song, though. I mean, this was actually one of my first Linkin Park songs. I know that's maybe kind of a weird start, but I do like this one. So what I've done, it's a great song for sure. Then we got Hands Held High, which is the other song on this album that has rapping in it. At least as far as I know, it's just that song and Bleed It Out that are the only two songs that have rapping, which is kind of interesting for a Linkin Park album, especially at this point. But yeah, this is a great song. Now, believe it or not, Hands Held High is actually maybe another one of my favorites on the album. I know that might sound shocking because you guys know that, I'm not really a big fan of rap, and I know that this song definitely has a decent amount of rapping in it. But I don't know, I just really love the emotion and how emotion-driven this song is. The lyrics are definitely deep, and I really like how this song kind of, leads from one thing to the next, and the song structure overall is really good. But yeah, Hands Held High, it's actually a really solid track. Then we got No More Sorrow, which is probably another favorite of mine on the album. And yeah, definitely a great song, probably one of the heaviest songs, just right next to Giving Up on this album, that is. Of course, Chester's vocals, impressive. And those riffs, I mean, it's got some hard-hitting riffs, and believe it or not, I've actually heard those riffs a while back, that introduction riff, a while back, and I never knew who it was from. I want to say it was like 2009 I first heard that riff, that introduction, that whatever it is at the beginning, and I never knew who it was from. I remember just really liking those riffs. I never knew who it was from, and then years down the road, I found out it was from Linkin Park. I was like, oh snap, So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So yeah, but the riffs are definitely something. Really great stuff. No More Sorrow is definitely a really great song, and probably another favorite of mine on the album. Then we got Valentine's Day, everyone's favorite holiday. I, of course, mean that sarcastically, but I'll be honest, this song has never been one of my favorites on the album. Is it bad? No, it does lack replay value. But I just never been crazy about this one. Then we got In Between, which is a really good song. I believe this song actually has Mike Shinoda mostly doing the vocals in the song, and it is a good song, though. It is kind of emotion driven. I mean, it is good, though. It's not one of my favorites, but it is a good song, though. And then we got In Pieces, which I think vocally reminds me a lot of Red, which that's kind of ironic since Red does have a song called Pieces. And of course, Linkin Park is one of Red's biggest influences, so I'm sure that says a lot. But In Pieces is a great song, though. Chester sounds great in this song, especially with the way he's delivering the vocals. Another emotion-driven song, definitely great. It might be another favorite of mine on the album, if not at least an honorable mention. Then we got the closing track, The Little Things You Give Away, and to be honest, not one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, it's maybe one of my least favorites on the album. I'm not sure why they chose this as the closing track, but I'm just not that big of a fan of it. I kind of have a similar complaint with it like Shadow of the Day. It's not a bad song, it's just kind of boring and lacks replay value, at least in my opinion. But it's not terrible, though. So, there you have it. That is my review for Minutes to Midnight by Linkin Park. The album does lose a little bit of steam, especially in the second half, which maybe that's another complaint that some people might have with this album, because I do feel like after No More Sorrow, that's where things kind of start to go downhill a little bit. But there is some good stuff in that part of the album, like, of course, In Pieces. I think it's a really good album, though. It is probably my third favorite Linkin Park album, just behind the first two, of course. It is a pretty solid album. And like I said, I think it's a pretty underrated album, so yeah, if you didn't like this album at first, please give it another chance. So as a score, I'll have to give this album probably the same rating I gave The Hunting Party, an 8 out of 10. It's a really good album, but just not as good as the first two. This album reaches number 3 for me as far as their ranking is concerned. So there you have it. That is my review for Linkin Park, Minutes to Midnight, and let me know what you guys think of this album. Thanks for watching, have a nice day, and take care.